The dusty streets of Willow Creek buzzed with excitement as the annual harvest dance approached. Sarah Mitchell stood behind the counter of her father's general store, watching through the window as cowboys rode into town. Her heart skipped when she spotted Jake Thompson dismounting his black stallion near the saloon. At 22, Jake was the most sought-after ranch hand in 3 counties, his sun-weathered face and gentle green eyes that seemed to hold secrets of the prairie. Sarah had loved Jake since they were children, but he never seemed to notice her beyond polite greetings when he bought supplies. She was the quiet storekeeper's daughter, while he was the adventurous cowboy who could tame any wild horse and charm any girl with his easy smile. The difference in their worlds felt as vast as the Texas plains that surrounded their small town. Sarah, stop daydreaming and help me with these flour sacks. Her father, William Mitchell, called from the back room. She reluctantly turned away from the window, her calloused hands automatically reaching for the heavy bags. Life in the frontier town was hard work, and there was little time for romantic fantasies. As evening approached, Sarah's younger sister, Emma, burst through the store's front door, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Sarah, you'll never guess what happened. Thompson asked me to the harvest dance." Emma spun around in her blue cotton dress, her blonde curls bouncing with joy. Sarah felt her heart sink like a stone thrown into a deep well. Emma was only 19, with porcelain skin and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Of course, Jake would choose her beautiful, vivacious sister over the plain shopkeeper who spent her days measuring fabric and counting coins. "That's wonderful, Emma," Sarah managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You'll have a lovely time." That night, Sarah lay in her narrow bed, listening to Emma chatter excitedly about dress patterns and dance steps. Through their shared bedroom window, she could see the stars scattered across the endless sky like diamonds on black velvet. She made a silent wish on the brightest star, knowing it was foolish but unable to stop herself. The next morning brought unexpected news. Mrs. Henderson, the town's biggest gossip, rushed into the store with information that would change everything. "Did you hear about the Dawson Ranch?" she whispered conspiratorially. "They're looking for a housekeeper and cook. The pay is good, but they need someone willing to work from dawn to dusk. It's hard work, mind you, but honest work." Sarah's ears perked up. The Dawson Ranch was where Jake worked as the head foreman. It was a large spread about 10 miles outside town, known for raising the finest cattle in the region. Old man Dawson was getting on in years, and his wife had passed the previous winter, leaving him in need of domestic help. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind, wild and desperate, but filled with possibility. If she could get the job at the Dawson Ranch, she would see Jake every day. Maybe, just maybe, he would notice her in a different light away from the confines of the store and the shadow of her prettier sister. "Mrs. Henderson," Sarah said carefully, "do you know if they've filled the position yet?" The older woman's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Why, Sarah Mitchell, are you thinking of applying? Would mean leaving your father's store?" And Sarah glanced around the familiar shop that had been her world since childhood. The shelves lined with canned goods, bolts of fabric, and farming supplies suddenly felt like a prison. She was 24 years old and had never been further than the next town over. The thought of breaking free from her predictable routine both terrified and thrilled her. "I might be interested," Sarah admitted quietly. Word traveled fast in Willow Creek, and by evening, her father had heard about her inquiry. He confronted her after closing time, his weathered face creased with concern and confusion. "Sarah, what's gotten into you? This store has been in our family for 15 years. You're my right hand here. Why would you want to go work for some rancher when you have a good position right here?" Sarah looked at her father's kind face and felt a pang of guilt. He'd worked hard to build this business, and she knew he counted on her help. But she also knew that if she didn't take this chance, she might spend the rest of her life wondering what could have been. "Papa, I need to see what's out there beyond these 4 walls," she said gently. "I've been working in this store since I was 12 years old. I want to experience something different, even if it's just for a little while." Her father studied her face in the lamplight, perhaps seeing something there he had never noticed before. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. If this is what you really want, Sarah, then I won't stand in your way. But promise me you'll be careful. Ranch work is hard, and you don't know these people well. The next morning, Sarah put on her best dress and rode out to the Dawson Ranch on her father's old mare. Her heart pounded with each mile that passed, and she rehearsed what she would say to convince Mr. Dawson to hire her. She had no experience as a professional housekeeper, but she had been managing her family's household. Since her mother died when she was 16, the ranch house came into view as she crested a small hill. It was a large, sprawling structure with a wraparound porch and several outbuildings scattered around the property. No cattle grazed in the distance, and she could see cowboys working with horses in a nearby corral. As she approached the house, she spotted Jake among the men training a spirited Mustang. He looked up as she rode past, tipping his hat politely, but showing no recognition of anything unusual about her presence there. Her resolve strengthened. This was her chance to show him who she really was beneath the quiet exterior he had always known. Sarah dismounted and walked up to the front door, her legs shaking slightly. She raised her hand to knock, knowing that whatever happened next would change her life forever. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty yard where her future waited to unfold. Mr. Dawson answered the door himself, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and kind blue eyes that reminded Sarah of her late grandfather. His face showed the wear of decades spent under the harsh Texas sun, but his smile was warm and welcoming. "Miss Mitchell, isn't it? What brings you out to my ranch this fine morning?" he asked, gesturing for her to step inside the spacious front room. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Mr. Dawson, I heard you might be looking for someone to help with housekeeping and cooking. I'd like to apply for the position." Old Rancher's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Well now, I wasn't expecting someone from town to be interested. Most folks think ranch work is beneath them. You sure you know what you're getting into, miss? This isn't like running a tidy shop in town. We're up before dawn and working until the stars come out." "I understand, sir. I've been helping run my father's store since I was young, and I've managed our household for years." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Sarah replied, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. Mr. Dawson studied her for a long moment, then nodded toward the kitchen. "Tell you what, why don't you show me what you can do? My cook quit last month, and I've been living on beans and hardtack ever since. If you can make a decent meal out of what's in that kitchen, the job is yours." The kitchen was large, but cluttered, with pots and pans scattered about and flour dusting every surface. Sarah rolled up her sleeves and set to work, finding eggs, bacon, and potatoes in the pantry. As she cooked, she noticed Jake and several other ranch hands gathering outside the window for their midday meal. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, scrambling eggs to fluffy perfection, frying bacon until it was crispy but not burned, and turning the potatoes into golden hash. The familiar rhythm of cooking calmed her nerves and reminded her that she did know how to do this work well. When she called Mr. Dawson to eat, his face lit up at the sight and smell of the hot meal. He took a generous bite and chewed thoughtfully, before breaking into a wide grin. "Miss Sarah, I do believe you've got yourself a job. When can you start?" "Tomorrow morning, if that suits you," she replied, hardly believing her bold plan was actually working. "Perfect, Jake," Mr. Dawson called through the window. "Come here a minute, son." Sarah's heart jumped as Jake approached the house, wiping his hands on his leather chaps. He stepped into the kitchen, his green eyes scanning the scene with curiosity. "I want you to meet our new housekeeper and cook, Miss Sarah Mitchell. She'll be starting tomorrow, so I want you to make sure the boys treat her with proper respect." Jake's expression showed genuine surprise as he looked at Sarah more closely than he ever had before. "Miss Mitchell, I didn't know you were looking to leave your father's store." "People change, Mr. Thompson," Sarah replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Sometimes we need to try new things to find out who we really are." Something flickered in Jake's eyes that she couldn't quite read, but he nodded respectfully. "Well then, welcome to the Dawson Ranch. If you need anything or have any trouble with the hands, you just let me know." After Jake left, Mr. Dawson showed Sarah to a small but comfortable room at the back of the house that would be hers. It had a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the corral where the horses were kept. It wasn't much, but it was hers alone, and that felt like freedom. That evening, Sarah returned home to pack her few belongings and say goodbye to her family. Emma was getting ready for her date with Jake, pinning her hair up in an elaborate style that showed off her slender neck. "I still can't believe you're going to work as a servant," Emma said, not looking up from her reflection in the mirror. "What will people think?" "I'm not a servant, Emma. I'm an employee, and there's honor in honest work," Sarah replied. Folding her plain dresses into a worn carpet bag, her father helped her load her things onto the wagon the next morning. His face, showing a mixture of pride and worry. "You write to us regular, you hear? And if things don't work out, you come straight home. No shame in that." "I will, Papa. Take care of the store, and don't let Emma eat all the penny candy." The ride back to the ranch gave Sarah time to think about what she was really doing. She wasn't just taking a job. She was gambling everything on a chance that Jake might see her differently if she proved herself capable and independent. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only one she had. When she arrived at the ranch house, Mr. Dawson helped her carry her bags to her room. "Now, Sarah, I want you to know that you're part of this family now. You eat meals with me, not with the hands, and you're to be treated with the same respect as any lady. Anyone gives you trouble, you tell me directly." Sarah spent her first day learning the routines of the ranch house. She prepared breakfast before dawn, packed lunches for the working men, cleaned the large house from top to bottom, and started a hearty stew for dinner. The work was exhausting, but it felt meaningful in a way that weighing out sugar and measuring fabric never had. Late that afternoon, as she hung laundry on the line behind the house, she heard horses approaching. Through the sheets flapping in the wind, she saw Jake riding toward the house with two other cowboys. They had been out checking fence lines all day and looked tired and dusty. Jake dismounted near the water pump and began washing his face and hands, the cool water running through his dark hair. Sarah tried not to stare, but something about seeing him in his natural element made her heart race. This was where he belonged, not in town buying supplies and making small talk. When he looked up and caught her watching, she quickly turned back, too hanging clothes, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. But instead of walking away, Jake approached the clothesline. "Miss Sarah, how was your first day? Mr. Dawson treating you well?" "Very well, thank you. The work is hard but satisfying," she replied, focusing intently on pinning up a sheet. "That's good to hear. If you don't mind me saying, it's quite a change from working in your father's store. What made you decide to try ranch life?" Sarah paused, a wet shirt in her hands, and looked directly at him. For a moment, she considered telling him the truth. But instead, she said, "Sometimes a person needs to find out what they're really made of, Mr. Thompson. I wanted to see if I was stronger than I thought." Jake nodded slowly, and she thought she saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Well, I'd say you're off to a good start. That stew smells mighty fine from here." As he walked away toward the bunkhouse, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't much, but it was the longest conversation they had ever had, and he had looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Maybe, just maybe, her plan might actually work. 3 weeks into her new life at the Dawson Ranch, Sarah had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. She rose each morning before the roosters crowed, starting coffee and preparing hearty breakfasts for Mr. Dawson and packing lunches for the ranch. Hands. The physical work had made her stronger, and the constant activity kept her mind occupied during the day. But in the quiet evening hours, she found herself watching for Jake more than she cared to admit. The other cowboys had accepted her presence with polite respect, especially after word spread about her excellent cooking. Even the most gruff among them tipped their hats when they saw her and thanked her for the generous portions she packed in their lunch pails. But Jake remained friendly yet distant, treating her with the same courteous manner he showed everyone. Else, everything changed on a Tuesday morning when one of the younger cowboys, Billy Henderson, rode up to the house in a panic just as Sarah was hanging laundry. His horse was lathered with sweat, and his face was pale beneath his tan. "Miss Sarah? Is Mr. Dawson inside? There's been an accident down by the south pasture." Sarah dropped the wet shirt she was holding and ran toward the house. "What happened, Billy?" "Jake was trying to rope a wild bull that got mixed in with our Heard the rope got tangled around his leg when the bull charged. His horse threw him hard and now he's hurt bad. Can't move his left arm, and he's bleeding from his head. Mr. Dawson emerged from the house, having heard the commotion. His face went grim as Billy repeated the story. How far out is he? About 3 miles south, near the big oak tree. We got him propped up against it, but he needs help quick. Sarah didn't hesitate. I'm coming with you. Miss Sarah, it's no place for a lady, Mr. Dawson protested. The terrain is rough, and Jake's injuries might be worse than Billy described. I've been tending injuries since I was a child, Sarah replied firmly, already running back to the house. My mother taught me before she passed, and I've doctored. Plenty of cuts and bruises for Papa and the customers who came to the store. She grabbed her medical supplies from her room, including clean bandages, antiseptic, and the small sewing kit she used for mending clothes. Her hands shook slightly as she packed everything into a saddlebag, but her mind was clear and focused. Jake needed help, and she was probably the most qualified person available. The ride to the south pasture seemed to take forever, even though they pushed their horses hard. Sarah's legs ached from gripping the saddle, but she kept pace with the men, her determination overriding her physical discomfort. When they finally reached the massive oak tree, she saw Jake leaning against its trunk, his face pale and his left arm hanging at an unnatural angle. 2 cowboys stood nearby, looking helpless and worried. Sarah dismounted quickly and ran to Jake's side, kneeling in the dusty grass beside him. His green eyes were clouded with pain, but he managed a weak smile when he saw her. Miss Sarah, what are you doing way out here? This is no place for a proper lady. Hush now, she said gently, examining the gash on his forehead. Let me take care of you. Can you move your fingers on your left hand? Jake tried to wiggle his fingers and winced. Barely. I think my shoulder might be out of place, Sarah had seen this type of injury before, when her father had fallen from a ladder at the store. She knew it would be painful to fix, but leaving it untreated could cause permanent damage. She looked up at Mr. Dawson and the other men. I need to set his shoulder back in place, but it's going to hurt something fierce. Can you boys hold him? Steady? The men exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with taking orders from a woman, but Jake nodded weakly. Do what you need to do, Miss Sarah. I trust you. Those 4 words, I trust you, gave Sarah more confidence than any medical training could have. She positioned herself carefully, placed her hands on Jake's shoulder and arm, and took a deep breath. This is going to hurt, but it'll be over quick, she warned him. Then applied firm pressure in the direction she had seen the town doctor demonstrate years ago. Jake's shoulder popped back into place with an audible click. Ack! And he let out a sharp cry of pain before slumping forward in relief. Sarah immediately began cleaning the wound on his head, working with steady hands despite her racing heart. You did real good, Miss Sarah, Jake murmured as she bandaged his forehead. Where did you learn to do that? My mother was the closest thing to a doctor this town had for years, Sarah explained, securing the bandage with gentle precision. She taught me that sometimes you have to be strong for other people, even when you're scared. As she worked, she became aware that Jake was studying her face intently, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. There was something different in his expression, a warmth and respect that hadn't been there before. I never knew, he said softly. All these years I thought you were just the quiet girl who worked in her father's store. I never realized how capable you were. Sarah felt her cheeks flush, but she continued working, fashioning a sling for his arm from a spare bandana. People are often more than they appear to be, Mr. Thompson. Sometimes it just takes the right circumstances to reveal what's been there all along. The ride back to the ranch was slow and careful, the Jake riding double behind Mr. Dawson, while Sarah kept a watchful eye on his condition. Once they reached the house, she helped Jake to his room in the bunkhouse and gave strict instructions to the other cowboys about keeping his wounds clean and changing the bandages. That evening, as Sarah prepared dinner, Jake appeared at the kitchen door. His left arm was still in the sling, but he looked much better after resting and cleaning up. Sarah, I wanted to thank you properly for what you did today. You probably saved my shoulder from permanent damage. Sarah turned from the stove, wiping her hands on her apron. There's no need to thank me. I just did what anyone would do. No, Jake said, stepping closer. What you did took real courage and skill. I've been thinking about what you said about people being more than they appear. I realize I've been guilty of that myself. Their eyes met across the warm kitchen, and Sarah felt something shift between them, like a door opening to reveal a room that had always been there but never explored. The first time since she had known him, Jake was really seeing her. It's not as the storekeeper's daughter or Emma's plain sister, but as Sarah herself. "Mr. Thompson," she began, but he held up his good hand to stop her. "Jake," he said simply, I think we've moved beyond formalities, don't you?" Sarah smiled, feeling a flutter of hope in her chest. "Jake, then, would you like some coffee? You should probably eat something light before bed." As Jake settled into a chair at the kitchen table, accepting the cup of coffee she offered, Sarah realized that her desperate plan had worked better than she had ever dared to hope. She had wanted Jake to notice her, and he finally had. But more importantly, she had discovered something about herself in the process. She was stronger, braver, and more capable than she had ever imagined. The conversation that followed was easy and natural, ranging from ranch life to childhood memories to dreams for the future. For the first time, Sarah felt like Jake was truly listening to her, interested in her thoughts and opinions rather than just being polite. When he finally stood to return to the bunkhouse, favoring his injured shoulder, he paused at the door and looked back at her. "Sarah," he said, using her first name for the first time, "would you mind checking my bandages tomorrow morning? I'd rather have you do it than one of the other boys." "Of course," she replied, her heart singing at the gentle way he said her name, as she watched him walk carefully back to the bunkhouse. Sarah realized that everything had changed in the span of one dangerous, frightening day. Jake was finally seeing her as she truly was, and she had proven to herself that she was exactly as strong as she had hoped to be. The weeks following Jake's accident brought a new closeness between him and Sarah that neither of them had expected. Every morning she checked his bandages and monitored his healing progress, their conversations growing longer and more personal. With each passing day, Jake began lingering in the kitchen after meals, helping her with dishes despite his injured arm, and sharing stories about his life on the ranch that he had never told anyone before. Sarah learned that Jake had been orphaned at 12 and taken in by a series of ranch families who valued his skill with horses more than his need for affection. He had grown up believing that his worth lay solely in his ability to work hard and cause no trouble. This revelation helped Sarah understand why he had always seemed so distant and self-contained. One evening, as autumn painted the Texas sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Jake found Sarah on the back porch shelling peas for the next day's meal. His shoulder had healed well, though it still ached when the weather changed, and he no longer needed the sling. "Mind if I sit with you?" he asked, settling onto the wooden step beside her, without waiting for an answer. This had become their routine, these quiet moments after the day's work was done, when they could talk without interruption.
Ow.
"How's your shoulder feeling today?" Sarah asked, her fingers working automatically to split the green pods and release the small, perfect peas into her bowl. "Better every day, thanks to your doctoring," Jake replied, watching her work. "Sarah, can I ask you something that's been on my mind?" She looked up from her task, noting the serious tone in his voice. "Of course. Why did you really come to work here? Don't tell me it was just to try something new. I've known you for years and you were never restless or unhappy at your father's store." Sarah's hands stilled in her lap. She'd been dreading this question, knowing that eventually Jake's natural perceptiveness would lead him to the truth. She could lie, make up some story about wanting independence or adventure, but something in his earnest green eyes made her want to be honest. "You really want to know?" she asked quietly. "I do." Sarah took a deep breath, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I came here because of you, Jake, because I've been watching you from my father's store window for years. And I thought, maybe, if I was in your world instead of mine, you might finally see me as something more than just the quiet Mitchell girl." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Sarah couldn't bring herself to look at Jake's face, afraid of what she might see there. Pity? Embarrassment? Amusement at her foolish presumption? When Jake finally spoke, his voice was soft and wondering. You mean you took this job, left everything? You knew, just for a chance that I might notice you? Yes, Sarah whispered, still not looking at him. I know it sounds desperate and foolish, but I was 24 years old and had never been anywhere or done anything on my own. I was tired of being invisible, especially to the one person whose opinion mattered most to me. She felt Jake's hand cover hers, warm and gentle. Sarah, look at me. Reluctantly, she raised her eyes to meet his, expecting to see sympathy or awkward kindness. Instead, she saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. His expression was tender and amazed, as if she had just revealed something miraculous. You think I never noticed you? He asked, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. Sarah, I noticed you plenty. I just never thought someone like you would be interested in someone like me. What do you mean? She asked, confused. Jake smiled ruefully. You were the smart, respectable daughter of a successful businessman. You had a place in society, a future. I was just a ranch hand with no family, no property, no prospects beyond the next day's wages. What could I possibly offer someone like you? Sarah stared at him in amazement. You thought I was too good for you? I knew you were too good for me, Jake corrected. That's why I kept my distance. It was easier to be polite and friendly than to risk embarrassing myself by showing how I really felt. How you really felt. Sarah's voice was barely audible. Jake shifted on the porch step to face her more fully, his hand still holding hers. Sarah, I've been half in love with you since we were teenagers. Every time I saw you in town, you seemed so proper and untouchable, like you belonged in a different world from mine. When your sister started talking to me, I thought maybe I could forget about you by paying attention to someone who seemed more attainable. Sarah felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. All these years they had been keeping their distance from each other based on the same fear that they weren't good enough for the other person. Emma, Sarah said suddenly, reality crashing back in. You asked Emma to the harvest dance. What about her? Jake's expression grew troubled. That's something I need to set right. I never should have led her on when my heart was elsewhere. It wasn't fair to her, and it wasn't honest of me. But she's so excited about the dance. She's been planning her dress for weeks. I know, and I feel terrible about it. But I can't keep pretending to feel something I don't, especially now that I know there might be a chance for us. The weight of what Jake was suggesting settled over Sarah like a heavy blanket. If he broke things off with Emma to be with her, it would cause a scandal in town and create a rift in her family that might never heal. Emma would be humiliated, and their father would be caught in the middle of his daughter's conflict. Jake, I don't know if we can do this, Sarah said reluctantly. Emma cares about you, and she's my sister. I can't destroy her happiness for my own. What about your happiness? Jake asked earnestly. Don't you deserve a chance at love too? Before Sarah could answer, they heard the sound of a horse approaching the ranch house. Through the gathering dusk, they could see a rider coming up the main road at a fast pace. As the figure drew closer, Sarah's heart sank as she recognized her sister Emma on her father's gray mare. No, Sarah breathed, quickly pulling her hand away from Jake's. What is she doing here? Emma dismounted near the front porch and hurried around to the back of the house, her face flushed from the hard ride. When she saw Sarah and Jake sitting together on the back steps, her expression shifted from worry to confusion to something darker. Sarah, thank goodness you're all right, Emma said breathlessly. When you didn't come home for Sunday dinner last week, Papa was worried, but I can see you've been ... occupied. There was something sharp in Emma's tone that Sarah had never heard before. Her younger sister's blue eyes flicked between Sarah and Jake, taking in their close proximity and the intimate atmosphere she had interrupted. Emma, what are you really doing here? Sarah asked, standing up and brushing the pea pods from her skirt. I came to see Jake, actually, Emma replied, her chin lifting defiantly. We need to discuss our plans for the harvest dance. It's only 3 days away, and I wanted to coordinate what we're wearing. Jake stood as well, his jaw tightening with resolve. Emma, I'm glad you're here. There's something we need to talk about, and I'd rather do it honestly than let you hear it from someone else. Sarah watched her sister's face change as she realized what Jake was about to say. Emma's confident smile faltered, replaced by a look of growing dread. "Jake, what are you talking about?" Emma asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. "Emma, I can't take you to the harvest dance. It wouldn't be fair to you, because my feelings have changed. Thought I should tell you directly rather than leave you wondering." Emma's face went pale, then flushed bright red. Her eyes filled with tears, but when she spoke, her voice was steady and cold. "I see, and I suppose this change of heart has something to do with my sister." The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah felt torn between loyalty to Emma and the possibility of happiness with Jake. She knew that whatever she said next would change everything between the three of them forever. "Emma," Sarah began softly, "I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen, didn't it?" Emma's voice rose with hurt and anger. "My own sister, stealing away the man who asked me to the most important dance of the year." The accusation hit Sarah like a physical blow, even though she knew it contained enough truth to sting. She had come to the ranch hoping to win Jake's attention. Even knowing that Emma had feelings for him, as the three of them stood in the growing darkness, Sarah realized that the beautiful, complicated thing growing between her and Jake was about to be tested in the cruelest possible way. The choice between love and family loyalty stretched before her like a chasm, and she wasn't sure which side she had the courage to choose. The tension in the air was thick as molasses as the three of them stood in the dying light of the Texas evening. Emma's tears had started falling despite her efforts to maintain her composure, and Sarah felt her heart breaking for her sister, even as it soared with the possibility of Jake's love. "Emma, please let me explain," Jake said gently, taking a step toward her. "This isn't about Sarah stealing me away. It's about me being honest about feelings I've had for much longer than I've known you." "How long?" Emma demanded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "How long have you been lying to me while I made a fool of myself planning our future together?" Sarah winced at the pain in her sister's voice. Emma wasn't just hurt, she was humiliated, and Sarah knew that feeling all too well from years of watching Jake from afar while believing she was invisible to him. "I never lied to you," Jake replied firmly. "I asked you to one dance, Emma. I never promised you anything beyond that evening. But you let me believe there could be more?" Emma's voice cracked with emotion. "You came by the store, you smiled at me, you made me think I mattered to you." "You do matter," Jake insisted. "You're a lovely girl, Emma, and you deserve someone who can love you completely." "I'm not that person, and I never was." Emma turned her furious gaze on Sarah, her blue eyes blazing with hurt and betrayal. "And you, how could you do this to me?" "I'm your sister. I trusted you with my dreams about Jake, and you used that against me." The accusation hit Sarah harder than any physical blow could have. "Emma, that's not true. I never used anything against you. I came here to work. And yes, I hoped Jake might notice me, but I never planned for any of this to happen the way it did." "But you're glad it did, aren't you?" Emma shot back. "You're finally getting what you always wanted, and you don't care who gets hurt in the process." Sarah felt the words like a slap across the face, partly because there was truth in them that she couldn't deny. She had wanted Jake's attention, had schemed to get it, and now that she had it, part of her was grateful, despite the cost. "Emma, I do care that you're hurt," Sarah said quietly. "I care more than you know. But I can't apologize for falling in love, and I can't pretend it didn't happen just to spare your feelings." "Love." Emma's laugh was bitter and harsh. "You think this is love? This is you being jealous and manipulative, just like you've always been." "That's enough," Jake interrupted firmly, stepping between the two sisters. "Emma, I understand you're angry and hurt, but don't say things you'll regret later. Sarah has been nothing but honest with me about her feelings. Honest with you, maybe, but not with me." Emma whirled around to face him again. "She knew I cared about you, and she came out here anyway. She planned this whole thing." Mr. Dawson emerged from the house, drawn by the sound of raised voices. His weathered face showed concern as he took in the scene. Emma's tear-stained face, Sarah's guilty expression, and Jake's protective stance. "What's all the commotion about?" the old rancher asked gently. "Miss Emma, what brings you out here so late?" Emma straightened her shoulders, trying to regain some dignity. I came to speak with Jake about the harvest dance, but it seems he's had a change of heart." Her voice dripped with wounded pride. Mr. Dawson's sharp eyes moved between the three young people. Sarah could see him piecing together what had happened. He had been around long enough to recognize the signs of romantic drama when he saw them. "I see," he said simply. "Well, Miss Emma, it's getting dark and that's a long ride back to town. Why don't you stay the night and head home in the morning?" "When it's safer? Thank you, Mr. Dawson. But I need to get home," Emma replied stiffly. "My father will be worried if I'm not back soon." "Emma, please," Sarah pleaded. "Don't ride back alone in the dark. Stay tonight and we can talk this through properly." "I have nothing more to say to either of you," Emma declared, walking toward her horse with as much dignity as she could muster. "Jake, I hope you'll be very happy with your choice. Sarah, I hope it was worth destroying our family for."
Yes, Emma.
Mounted her horse, Jake called out, "Emma, wait! Let me at least escort you partway home. It's not safe for you to ride alone." "I don't need your protection," Emma replied coldly. "I've learned tonight that I can't depend on anyone but myself." She wheeled her horse around and rode off into the darkness, leaving Sarah staring after her with tears streaming down her face. The sound of hoofbeats faded quickly, leaving an awful silence behind. "I should go after her," Sarah said, starting toward the corral where her own horse was kept. Jake caught her arm gently. "Sarah, she's too upset to listen to reason right now. Give her time to calm down and then you can talk to her." "But she's right about some things," Sarah said through her tears. "I did come here hoping to win your attention away from her. Knew she cared about you, and I came anyway." "What kind of sister does that make me?" Mr. Dawson cleared his throat softly. "If I may say so, Miss Sarah, it makes you human. People can't help who they fall in love with, and love isn't always convenient. Or easy. The heart wants what it wants, regardless of the complications." "But Emma is so hurt," Sarah protested. "She looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was someone she couldn't trust anymore." "She come around," Jake said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "Emma's young, and she's never had her heart broken before. But she's your sister, and family bonds are stronger than romantic disappointment." Sarah wanted to believe him, but she had seen something in Emma's eyes that frightened her. Her sister had always been the favored one, the pretty one who got what she wanted without having to fight for it. This was probably the first time Emma had lost something she thought was hers, and Sarah wasn't sure her sister would forgive her for being the cause of that loss. "Mr. Dawson, I think I should probably leave," Sarah said suddenly. "This situation is too complicated and I don't want to cause more problems for anyone." "Now hold on," the old rancher protested. "You're not responsible for other people's feelings, Sarah. You've done nothing wrong by being honest about your own heart, haven't I?" Sarah asked miserably. "I came here with selfish motives. I wanted something that I thought belonged to someone else, and I went after it anyway." Jake moved closer to her, his voice gentle but firm. "Sarah, Emma never had any claim on me. We went on a few rides together, and I asked her to one dance. That doesn't constitute a promise of marriage or even exclusive courtship. If I had genuinely cared for her, your presence here wouldn't have changed anything." "But she believed there was more between you," Sarah pointed out. "She had expectations. Expectations that I never encouraged," Jake replied. "Sarah, I won't lie and say, I'm not sorry Emma got hurt. I won't apologize for finally having the courage to pursue what my heart has wanted for years." Mr. Dawson nodded approvingly. "The boy's right, Sarah. You can't live your life trying to spare other people's feelings at the expense of your own happiness. Sometimes people get hurt, and that's unfortunate, but it's part of life." Sarah looked between the two men, seeing the support and understanding in their faces. Part of her wanted to accept their reassurance and move forward with Jake, but another part couldn't shake the image of Emma's devastated face. "I need some time to think," she said finally. "This has all happened so fast, and I need to figure out what's right." Jake's expression showed disappointment, but he nodded. "I understand. Ought to take all the time you need, Sarah. I've waited this long for you. I can wait a little longer." As Sarah walked slowly back to her room in the ranch house, she felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on her shoulders. On one side was the possibility of love with Jake, something she had dreamed about for years. On the other was her relationship with her sister. damaged perhaps beyond repair by her actions. She lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling and trying to imagine a future where she could have both Jake's love and Emma's forgiveness. But as the hours passed and dawn approached, she began to fear that she might have to choose between the two most important relationships in her life. Outside her window, out! She could hear Jake moving around in the pre-dawn darkness, preparing for another day of ranch work. Soon she would have to get up and cook breakfast. Pretend that everything was normal while her world fell apart around her. The harvest dance was only 2 days away, and Sarah knew that whatever decisions she made would have to come soon. The entire town would be watching to see who Jake arrived with. The gossip would spread like wildfire regardless of what happened. As the first light of dawn crept across the Texas sky, Sarah made a resolution. She would ride into town that morning and try to make things right with Emma, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. Family had to come first, even when it broke her heart to choose it. Sarah rode into Willow Creek with a heavy heart, her resolve weakening with each passing mile. The town she once knew felt changed, as if her time away had altered not only herself, but the way she saw the world. Outside her father's store, the closed sign still hung despite the late morning hour. Inside, her father, William Mitchell, looked up from his coffee, relief on his face quickly turning to concern. "Sarah, thank goodness you're here," he said, embracing her. Emma came home. Last night, in quite a state. She wouldn't say what happened, just locked herself in her room and cried. Sarah's chest tightened. "Where is she now?" "Upstairs, but I doubt she wants visitors." She said something about Jake Thompson and a misunderstanding. "What's going on, Sarah?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah confessed everything. Her years-long feelings for Jake, taking the ranch job in hopes of catching his attention, their growing bond, and the confrontation with Emma the night before. Her father listened silently, disappointment etched on his face. "I wish you'd talk to me first," he said softly. "I just didn't want to fade into the background anymore," Sarah admitted. "But I never meant to hurt Emma." Just then, Emma appeared in the doorway, her eyes swollen and dress wrinkled from a sleepless night. "Come to gloat?" she asked coldly. "Emma, please, was any of it real?" Emma interrupted. "You listened to me talk about Jake all these years, while secretly wanting him?" Sarah winced. "I didn't plan this. I was happy for you, jealous too, sometimes. But I never wanted to betray you." Emma's voice quivered with rage. "You're always the good sister." "Turns out you're no better than anyone else," William stepped in. "Emma, enough. Hurting your sister won't ease your pain." "Wait. She took the one thing that mattered to me," Emma shouted. "Now the whole town knows Jake chose the plain sister over the pretty one." "It's not about pretty or plain," Sarah said. "Jake and I connected. We understand each other." Emma scoffed. "How convenient." Sarah, holding back tears, said, "You're beautiful and kind, Emma. Jake wasn't the right man for you, but someone else will be. It's easy for you to say when you got what you wanted," Emma spat. "Did I?" Sarah asked. "I came here to tell you that if it means mending things between us, I'll let Jake go." Emma blinked in surprise. "You'd give him up? Just like that?" "You're my sister," Sarah replied. "That matters more than anything." For a brief moment, Emma softened, but then she hardened again. "No, I don't want your pity or sacrifice. If Jake picked you, that's his burden. But don't expect thanks from me." "Please," Sarah said, desperate. "I just want us to be right again." Emma shook her head. "You broke something. Maybe someday I'll forgive you. But I'll never trust you again." She turned and walked away. Leaving silence behind, she come around. William said gently, though he didn't sound convinced. "No, Papa," Sarah whispered, tears falling. "I've lost her." That afternoon, back at the ranch, Jake was waiting. "How did it go?" "It went badly. Emma won't forgive me, and she doesn't want my sacrifice either." Jake's eyes were full of sorrow. "If you need to choose your family over me, I'll understand. It'll hurt, but I'll respect it." Sarah looked at him, realizing this wasn't a choice between Jake and Emmett, it was a choice between hiding and living bravely. "No, I won't let her anger control my life. I love you, Jake, and I'm done apologizing for it. Jake's face lit with hope. Are you sure? I'm sure, she said. Life's too short to waste on regrets. At the harvest dance, Willow Creek buzzed with gossip. Sarah wore her mother's altered blue dress, and Jake looked striking in his best suit. As they entered, all eyes turned. In one corner, Emma danced stiffly with Tom Bradley, smiling with brittle grace. Are you ready for this? Jake whispered. Ready? Sarah replied. They danced, ignoring whispers, lost in each other. Sarah felt more alive than ever, fully herself in Jake's arms. Midway through the night, she caught Emma's gaze. Her sister's expression was unreadable. But Sarah imagined she saw a flicker of understanding, or maybe just resignation. Afterward, Jake walked her home beneath a blanket of stars. On the porch, he took her hands. I know tonight was hard, and more hard days will come. But I've never been more certain than I am about loving you. I love you too, Sarah said. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. 3 months later, Sarah and Jake were married in a quiet church ceremony. Mr. Dawson gave her away, as her father was too ill to walk her down the aisle. Emma sat stiffly in the back pew, but she came. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. Years passed. Sarah and Jake built a happy life on their own small ranch. Emma married Tom and moved to a nearby county, though the sisters never regained their closeness. They exchanged letters and shared holidays. Their relationship warmed, slowly, over time. Sarah often reflected on that younger version of herself, the girl who left her father's store in search of something more. She'd taken a risk, chasing a love that might never have been returned. She had paid a steep price in the loss of trust, but had gained a life she wouldn't trade for anything, as she watched her children play in the golden grass and Jake working nearby. Sarah knew that some choices, however painful, were worth making. Some love stories demanded sacrifice, and those were the ones that endured.